Hey everyone, welcome to episode 138 of a Nerd Name Mark podcast. This is something different. If you could see, I'm working on my new displays and new organization. So first off, I hope everyone had a good holiday. It's been almost, 2 weeks since I did a episode. Just enjoying the holidays and, working and everything else. So this episode isn't going to be your normal structured episode. I'm actually going to be going over my content roadmap for 2023, some things I'm working on. And, I was going to do like a retrospective of 2022, like my favorite toys, games, and this and that. And I was like, that kind of stuff kind of gets played out. And I know I've had people ask me like, hey, are you going to talk about your favorite things like from comics and games? And like, no, I'm not. I mean, I'll tweet about them and like put stuff on Instagram like, hey, this is one of my favorite things from the year. But this episode, I want to talk about next year. I want to talk about the restructuring of the podcast, the hiatus I am going to be going on, which is something that I think is long overdue, not from a quality of the content, but like I've been working behind the scenes on just trying to revamp the podcast, both from an audio standpoint and a video standpoint, because I just think you have to evolve over time. If you go back, and there's no video footage because I didn't start doing video versions of the podcast until like a year or so ago, about almost a year and a half. So if you go back to just the audio standpoint and you listen to like the first 3 or 4 episodes and then you compare them to how the most recent episodes are, obviously I've tried to evolve, improve on, and build on what I started with, like the foundation of it. Like you gotta, to build a house, you gotta start with the foundation. So what I plan on doing is the next step of this, which is the audio quality and everything else is fine. I'm gonna be working on more the video side, honestly. And I've got new graphics coming in, new intro, some animated stuff that's going to be part of the video stuff, but the new intro, like audio and all stuff, will be on the audio as well. But the video side of things is going to be a bigger focus, especially going into next year when I'm going to have a lot more guests. I've already been sending out the feelers and already getting people on board and being like, hey, this is what I want to work on. Do you want to come on as a guest? So there's gonna be a lot more guests. This year was this year alone was the most amount of guests I've had in the last 3+ years I've been doing the podcast. So I'm really excited going into next year to have more guests, more conversations, interviews, and stuff like that with people, because I really enjoy doing that side of it with the podcast, is having people on. Yes, a lot of the episodes will still be just me, because that's how I like the podcast to be, because that way it's on my time. I don't have to stress about a co-host being available and their schedule. And yeah, and also sometimes I can bulk record if I'm going on a vacation or I have something coming up where I know I won't be able to record. So from a podcasting standpoint, that's the main thing I'm going to be working on, is just making this more visually to where I want it. And that's something like I was like, well, it's not going to happen overnight. And if I'm going to focus on this, I need to pause the podcast. So the podcast, realistically, this is the last episode of 2022. Actually, honestly, I think I'm going to put this up January 2nd, because I have other content going up and I don't want to just flood a whole bunch of content onto the YouTube channel and onto the RSS feed. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this up Monday, January 2nd. And so technically it's the first podcast of the year. Happy New Year. But I do want to, take the whole month of January off to start doing those changes, getting all the stuff implemented, testing it out. Cause I got to test it out with like test recordings and everything else and fine tune it. And then the podcast will be returning in February. So I'm really looking forward to that. I'm excited to share with you guys the next step, the next evolution of a Nerd Name Mark podcast, as well as possibly another series that I have been working on. And I know, listen, if I didn't get hit with some copyright issues, the other show I was working on would be out. Luckily, I didn't put I put time into it, but I see it as a learning experience because I learned a lot more video editing, a lot more audio editing styles for it. Would I be able to kind of find a way to like fix it up and release it? Probably, but the way I had it was how I wanted it. And then I did a test upload to YouTube and it got struck almost instantly. Like, and I was like, well, I'm not setting that to live. It already got, like, I'm going to get a strike the second I hit publish. Like, nope. So I removed it. But this one I'm really looking forward to because obviously I do like comics. I do like manga. I do like anime. And while that stuff's on here, I want to focus on manga more, especially from a collecting standpoint and this and that. That's why you've seen more. If you're watching on YouTube, you've seen a lot more manga videos coming up. I'm a big fan. And like I said, this channel was always meant to be an extension of the podcast, of what I talk on the podcast. So if I'm talking about comics and I'm like, I can't wait to read this, you know, hopefully time allowed, there'll be a follow-up video being like, hey, remember on this episode I talked about that? Well, here's my review of it. I did get to check it out. And that's also why I'm shifting focus on the YouTube channel. And I have another video that's going to be, that I'm working on right now, that's actually I'm almost done with, that will be going live within the next week or so, going over how I fell down into this rabbit hole, like accidentally became a toku tuber. And that's not a bad thing, and I talk about it in the video, but that wasn't my focus. And yes, I got wrapped up in it, and you know, I'm still going to cover that stuff, but that's not what I want my whole channel to be. Oh, sorry, drama. You know, I want my channel to be, like I said, an extension of the podcast, an extension of everything I'm into. And I don't want to have to make a separate channel now. Like, no, I want everything on one channel. So there's something for everyone. If you don't like tokusatsu stuff, that's fine. Hey, what are you here for? Comics and manga? That's here. Here for the podcast? That's here too. I always tell everyone, I have friends who try and make multiple channels. I'm like, why? They're like, well, to distinguish all the stuff away. I was like, no, if you have people who enjoy just this one type of video you do and not the others, guess what? They can just not watch the other videos. They can still watch these videos. Like, you don't have to make two channels. That's two more people that got to subscribe. That's another person I got to subscribe to, and more their, like, their feed is still going to look the same. It's just going to say a different user uploaded it. But so that's something I'm working on. Like, that's why there's been manga stuff going up, my haul videos again. And I don't know if I'm going to get into video game reviews. I was dabbling with the idea of doing that. I think from an editing standpoint, capturing video footage, doing voiceover, scripting things out. I'm not a scripted person. I'm really not. I can't do scripted videos. It's not my wheelhouse. It's something that just does not work for me. I'm bad at it. I come across as disingenuous when I'm scripted, like, because I'm reading. So there's no inflection, there's no tone, there's no emotion in it. It's because I'm focused on reading it. I'm not good at reading out loud. Like, I never have been. So, I mean, I'm good at public speaking. I'm good at with bullet points and just boom, boom, boom. But full script, read this verbatim, not gonna happen. That's not me. It's not my style. I just suck at it. But yeah. Some other things. From a upgrade, like the reason why I'm also changing a lot of stuff around behind me visually is, one, I've been wanting to for a while now, but then given the housing market and everything else right now, we have decided, hey, we're just going to renew our lease when we're here, because we've been saying it for like the last like year or two, like, hey, we should, you know, not everything else was happening, so obviously we renewed the lease because we weren't going to move during a pandemic. But we're like, man, the housing market, the internet, like, I was like, we're gonna have to renew the lease. We're gonna have to stay here another year. So I was like, well, it gives us time. We can save even more now. But I was like, well, if I'm gonna be here we're gonna be here another year. If I'm gonna be in this like work office pseudo corner where I do everything, I'm finally gonna start making it look the way I want it to look. Because before I was buying stuff cheap for the convenience of just having some displays up, and you know, while I figured out what I wanted for displays, and I had a wish list on like Google Docs, I had just a list of all these URLs and stuff that I wanted to buy, that I was like, yeah, when I get my when we get our new place to get the office, this is how I would display. And I'm like, well, if I'm gonna be here another year, I'm at least gonna get some of the stuff and start changing it over to how I want it. So like the bookshelf behind me, the white one from IKEA, this was gonna be something that I was gonna put in the new place. And I was like, yeah, this is what I want. This, so like more stuff is gonna be changing as I do over the next course of a couple months, because realistically now we're gonna be here until like spring of 2024. So I was like, yeah, I'm gonna start change. So visually behind me stuff is gonna change and be more to my aesthetics that I want. That being said, there's not really much else, you know. I'm not going to milk the episode. I'm not going to try and drag it out. This really was more or less, it was originally just going to be a hiatus announcement. I was going to be like, hey, going on a hiatus. That's what I'm doing. Like, that's legit what I want. Like, that's all I was going to do, was just be like, hey, here's a quick 2-minute video. I'm going on hiatus. I'll see you guys next in February with new podcast episodes. There'll still be regular YouTube content going up. But instead, I was like, you know what? Let me explain some of the stuff I'm working on and why I'm going on hiatus. Because I'm not just being like, oh, I'm burnt out. Like, I am burnt out, don't get me wrong. But that's not from a content. That's just life in general. Like, I'm tired. You know, the holidays and work and everything else and physical issues. Like, I'm so exhausted. I'm like, and not even mentally, I'm physically exhausted. Did you ever just get so physically exhausted that you start to get mentally exhausted? And that's where I'm at. And I'm just like, man, but I'm still doing video content, this, that. And it's like, but this is, I'm doing, this is all like, I'm doing this to myself because, you know, when I'm not working this, and that, I'm researching and teaching myself more audio tricks and more video editing tricks. And, you know, I'm constantly expanding my repertoire for this because I want to be a better content creator. I want to be a better podcaster. I spend so much time, like, I don't even listen to music anymore. I'm listening to podcasts. I'm watching podcasts. I'm watching tutorial videos on editing and everything else. Like, because I just want to grow and become a better creator. And I know a lot of people who do this who just are content with where they're at. And I'm like, hey, if you're happy with what the product you're putting out, as long as when you hit up like render and before you upload, you watch it and you're happy with that, that's all that matters. As long as I'm happy, but like, I'm happy with what I put out for content. But even I know, hey, it could be better. I could be better at this. And I want to be. That's why I do all that. So all this exhaustion, everything I'm going through is basically my own. I'm staying up till like 1, 2 in the morning, watching videos, listening to, like, I'm doing this to myself because I'm learning. I want to grow. I want to be better. And that's why hopefully when the podcast returns in February and you guys come back and listen to it or watch the video versions, you'll see the changes, and I think you'll like what you see. I'm already kind of happy with some of the stuff that I've already planned out and seen some of the rough drafts on from like a design stand. Like, I'm pretty happy with what's going to come out. And I'm hoping that it's well received. It's not a drastic change. It's just, like I said, the next step, the next evolution version of this podcast and myself as a content creator. Even down to the YouTube channel, my thumbnails are changing. I'm constantly learning how to like, get better with Photoshop and Illustrator. And, you know, I even have the Wacom tablet because I used to draw all the time and I want to get back into that. It's been tough because I did have double carpal tunnel surgery years ago. And, you know, you lose, like, you know, I'm going to get back into drawing. I'm going to get back into the art side of things. So I'm, you know, a lot going on. And I don't talk about it all the time on the podcast because, like, I'm this firm believer in, and there's a difference between being fully transparent with what's going on and just oversharing. And I don't overshare on social media. I don't overshare on the podcast either. I have to keep some things to myself, my personal life, because if everyone knows it's not your personal life if everyone knows it. So I don't really, you know, talk about a lot of stuff that's going on behind the scenes. And that's basically what's been going on. So I'm not going to waste any more of your guys' time. I appreciate everyone who's been checking out the podcast this year, everyone who's been subscribing to the YouTube channel, the emails, the tweets, DMs. Appreciate all of it. Just because there's no episodes coming out, keep in touch. You know, I still reply to everything. All the social media links are in the description below, both on audio and video. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to everything genuinely coming out. Like, I'm coming up in February. I'm really excited. My throat is like all messed up right now because we've had rain in San Diego, but it was also like 80 something over Christmas weekend. So I'm just like, this drastic weather change is killing my sinuses, and I'm trying not to get sick. But I thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for watching. This has been a really very quick episode 138 of our Nerd Name Bar podcast. I have to number it. Because it messes up the RSS feed, and I hate that so much. I can't do it. It's like, oh, here's a special announcement. It's like, nope. If I don't put the RSS like numbered and everything else, it just screws up the RSS feed. So I was like, fine, I'll just have to call this episode 138 with an asterisk next to it because it's not really an episode. But I thank you guys. I genuinely do. I hope you guys had a great holiday, and I hope you guys have a happy new year. And I look forward to 2023 being a very productive year. That being said, my name's Mark, and I'm a nerd.